Claire Matthews sat in her small New York apartment, sipping cold coffee as she scrolled through her editor's latest email. It wasn't the type of assignment she was used to, a haunted mansion in Savannah, Georgia, with a reputation for driving visitors insane. Her editor, Robert, had written, "This one's different, Claire. It's got mystery, drama, and maybe even a bestseller waiting to be uncovered. You're the only one I trust with this." Though skeptical of ghost stories, Claire couldn't resist the allure of a challenge. Packing her bags and camera, she booked the next flight to Savannah, unaware that this trip would change her life forever. The mansion loomed ahead, shrouded in fog and mystery. Claire's car rumbled over the gravel driveway, stopping in front of an iron gate that groaned as it swung open. Ravenwood Manor was a testament to forgotten grandeur. Its once white walls now stained gray with age, and ivy crawling over the windows like skeletal fingers. Mrs. Hollis, the caretaker, greeted Claire at the door. "Don't let the beauty fool you," she whispered. "This house has secrets darker than the night." Ignoring the ominous warning, Claire stepped inside. The grand foyer was a mix of decayed splendor, a crystal chandelier covered in cobwebs, a staircase with creaking steps, and faded portraits of the Whitmore family staring down with hollow eyes. That evening, Claire began her exploration of the mansion. In the grand ballroom, she felt a chill despite the stagnant air. The walls were adorned with cracked mirrors, reflecting distorted images. Suddenly, a soft melody played, a piano though the instrument stood untouched. Turning around, Claire gasped. A woman in a red gown stood at the far end of the room, her face obscured by a veil of shadows. She raised her hand as if beckoning Claire closer before vanishing into thin air. Shaken but determined, Claire ascended to the attic the next day. The room was a treasure trove of history, dusty trunks, yellowed newspapers, and a rocking chair that moved slightly, as if nudged by an invisible hand. In an old chest, she found letters written by Eleanor Whitmore. They spoke of love, betrayal, and despair. "Samuel and I can never be together," one letter read. "Father would rather see me dead than see us wed." As she read the last line, Claire felt a sharp gust of wind blow through the attic, slamming the chest shut. She knew then that the answers lay in uncovering Eleanor's tragic story. The following night, Claire was drawn to the basement after hearing rumors of a secret seance room used by the Whitmore family. The air grew thick and oppressive as she descended the narrow staircase, the sound of her footsteps echoing in the darkness. She found the room in a state of eerie preservation. Candles were scattered across the floor, and strange symbols were carved into the walls. At the center was a large, ornate table, surrounded by chairs that seemed to hold the imprint of unseen bodies. A thick, unsettling presence filled the room, as though the spirits were just waiting to speak. Claire's hand trembled as she reached for an ancient book lying on the table, its pages filled with cryptic rituals. The words seemed to beckon her, urging her to invoke the spirits. As Claire sat down to examine the book, the room seemed to come alive. The air grew colder, and she felt herself slipping into a trance-like state. Suddenly, she was no longer in the basement. She was standing in a lush garden bathed in the golden light of dusk. Eleanor Whitmore appeared before her, dressed in a delicate white gown, her face filled with sorrow. "I never meant for it to end this way," Eleanor whispered, her eyes filled with tears. "Samuel and we were torn apart by forces beyond our control." Claire could see the pain and longing in Eleanor's eyes. It was clear that her love had been betrayed, but by whom, and what had happened to Samuel? The next morning, Claire could hardly shake the vision of Eleanor from her mind. The strange occurrences began to intensify. In the middle of the night, Claire was awoken by soft whispers filling her room. She sat up in bed, her heart racing, as the whispers grew louder and more distinct. "Find him," the voice said. "Samuel is the key to everything." The voice was not human. Its tone was hollow and distant, echoing through the very walls of Ravenwood. Claire knew that she had to uncover the truth before the spirits grew restless. With the whispers still lingering in her ears, Claire went to the local library the next day. She uncovered more about the Whitmore family's tragic history. Samuel, the servant, had been wrongfully accused of murdering Eleanor after she tried to run away with him. His body was never found. and the townspeople believed he had been executed in secret. The final piece of the puzzle came when Claire found an old diary belonging to Samuel himself. It was hidden beneath the floorboards in a room in the West Wing, the same room Mrs. Hollis had warned her about. Samuel had written that Eleanor's death was not what it seemed and that he had been framed, but someone powerful was trying to keep the truth hidden forever. Claire decided it was time to face the truth, no matter the cost. That night, she ventured into the West Wing, the area of the mansion that had been sealed for years. As she entered, the temperature dropped drastically and the walls seemed to pulse with energy. The air crackled with a sense of impending doom. Suddenly, Eleanor's spirit appeared again, but this time she was no longer a sad, peaceful figure. Her face twisted in rage. "You don't understand," Eleanor hissed. "They will never let us rest." A violent gust of wind blew through the room, extinguishing all the candles and plunging Claire into darkness. She knew that she had to confront the truth head-on if she ever wanted to escape Ravenwood Manor alive. Claire gathered all the strength she had left and performed a ritual she found in Samuel's diary. The house shook, and the walls seemed to groan under the pressure of the spirit's unrest. Eleanor's angry spirit began to calm, her sorrowful face emerging once more. "I was wrong," she whispered, her voice filled with regret. "Samuel was innocent. The true murderer was my father, my own flesh and blood. He wanted to keep the family's wealth and didn't want us to be together." As the truth was revealed, the spirits of Eleanor and Samuel were finally set free. The mansion seemed to breathe a sigh of relief as the oppressive energy lifted. Claire, forever changed by the experience, left Ravenwood Manor with the truth that would shock the world. The story of Ravenwood Manor spread like wildfire. Claire's article was published with great acclaim, captivating readers with the eerie tale of love, betrayal, and redemption. But even as the spirits of Eleanor and Samuel were freed, the house itself seemed to retain a haunted aura. Claire returned to New York, but the memories of Ravenwood haunted her every day. She would hear the soft whisper of Eleanor's voice in her dreams, urging her to never forget the truth. Despite the closure, Claire knew that Ravenwood Manor had left a mark on her that would never fade. Months passed, but Claire could never shake the feeling that something important had been left behind at Ravenwood. She returned to Savannah in secret, unsure if she was searching for answers or simply seeking closure. Mrs. Hollis, now a broken woman, told Claire about an ancient family heirloom hidden in the mansion's vault. A locket that had once belonged to Eleanor, said to contain a secret that could alter the course of history. Claire ventured into the vault, a room so old that it felt as though time itself had forgotten it. Dusty shelves lined the walls filled with forgotten relics. At the very back, hidden behind a false panel, Claire found the locket, its gold chain tarnished by years of neglect. Inside the locket was a small, faded photograph of a man Claire had never seen before. He was tall, dark-haired, and his eyes were filled with a cold, calculating intensity. The back of the photo read, "Henry Whitmore, my true love." Henry Whitmore, it seemed, had been the man responsible for Eleanor's death. Claire was stunned by the revelation. The truth about the Whitmore family's legacy was darker than she could have ever imagined. Henry had orchestrated Eleanor's tragic fate to prevent the union with Samuel, his own brother, from ever happening. The family's wealth and power meant everything to him, and he would stop at nothing to preserve it. But the curse of Ravenwood was far from over. As Claire delved deeper into the family history, she uncovered rumors of other dark deeds, whispers of sacrifices, betrayals, and untold tragedies that had plagued the Whitmore family for generations. Claire now understood that Ravenwood Manor had been built on a foundation of darkness, a place where every new generation of the Whitmore family had been doomed to repeat the same bloody mistakes. The spirits of the past still lingered, trapped by the family's greed and cruelty. As Claire prepared to leave once again, she realized that she had a choice. She could either expose the full extent of the Whitmore family's dark history to the world or keep the secret buried forever. But the spirit of Eleanor, appearing before her one last time, whispered, "The truth must be known, no matter the cost." With a heavy heart, Claire decided that the world needed to know the true legacy of Ravenwood. She would write the final chapter of the story, a story that would be both a warning and a testament to the strength of love, that transcends even death. After publishing the final chapter of her book, Claire began receiving mysterious messages. Letters, cryptic and unsigned, would arrive every few days, warning her to stop digging into the Whitmore family's history. The tone was chilling, and the sender's identity was unknown. Was it someone from the Whitmore family still alive? Or was it the lingering curse of Ravenwood? One evening, Claire received a message with a single sentence. The Whitmore legacy is not meant to be exposed. The handwriting was elegant, yet filled with a dark, malevolent energy. Claire felt the chill of the past closing in on her once again. Despite the warnings, Claire couldn't let the story go. She returned to Ravenwood Manor to confront the ghosts of the past one last time. The house seemed to be alive, its creaking floors and flickering lights mirroring the intense tension that hung in the air. The weight of its tragic history had become unbearable. Inside, Claire felt as though she was being watched. Each shadow seemed to shift, and every whisper carried the weight of years gone by. It was then that she discovered a hidden journal buried beneath the floorboards in a forgotten corner of the mansion. The journal belonged to a Whitmore ancestor, someone far older than Eleanor or Samuel. In it, the Whitmore family's dark secrets were revealed in full. It told of a curse placed upon the family generations ago by an unknown entity, vowing that each Whitmore heir would be doomed to repeat the same tragic fate unless they broke the chain of greed and deceit. The journal also revealed the true story behind Henry Whitmore's rise to power, his manipulation of the family wealth, and the untold suffering he had caused. But there was something more chilling, a warning. One who seeks the truth may never escape the curse. As Claire delved further into the journal, she uncovered the final secret. The Whitmore family had been cursed by an ancient, vengeful spirit, an entity that had bound them to the house, trapping them in an endless cycle of suffering. The spirit demanded a sacrifice to release them, and that sacrifice was to be one of their own bloodline. Claire understood that Samuel's wrongful death had been part of the curse, and Eleanor's death had been the catalyst that kept the curse alive. The Whitmore family's history was filled with the ghosts of those who had died as part of this twisted ritual. Determined to end the cycle, Claire knew what she had to do. She made her way to the heart of the mansion, where the spirit was said to reside. As she entered the old chapel, a cold breeze swept through the room, and the walls seemed to whisper her name. In the center, a stone altar stood, bathed in moonlight. Claire placed the locket on the altar, a symbol of the sacrifice made by the Whitmore family. The air grew thick with energy, and the spirit appeared before her, a shadowy figure, twisted and ancient, its eyes glowing with rage. But Claire stood firm. "I will end this once and for all," she declared as the spirit swirled around her. Slowly the entity faded, leaving behind a sense of peace. The curse was broken. As the mansion finally breathed a sigh of relief, Claire left Ravenwood for the last time. The spirits of Eleanor and Samuel, finally free from their torment, faded into the light, and the mansion seemed to settle into peaceful silence. Claire's book, now complete, was hailed as a masterpiece, a chilling tale of love, betrayal, and the lengths to which a family would go to preserve its wealth and power. But for Claire, the true story was not just one of ghosts and curses, but of the strength it took to face the truth, no matter the cost. Months passed, and Claire found herself unable to fully leave Ravenwood behind. She had written the book, broken the curse, and freed the spirits, but a part of her felt an unexplainable pull toward the mansion. Perhaps it was the mystery, the thrill of uncovering secrets, or perhaps a sense of unfinished business. One quiet evening, Claire received an invitation to visit Ravenwood Manor once again. The mansion's new owner, a distant relative of the Whitmore family, wanted to meet her. She hesitated, but a sense of curiosity overcame her. When Claire arrived, she was greeted by Thomas Whitmore, the great-great-grandson of Henry Whitmore. He was a man of few words but carried the weight of his family's troubled legacy. The house, he explained, had been abandoned for years, but he had recently decided to restore it, despite its dark past. Thomas had inherited Ravenwood unexpectedly after the last living Whitmore relative passed away. He had heard the stories of the mansion's hauntings and the curse, but he was determined to make the manor a place of peace rather than fear. As Claire and Thomas discussed the mansion's future, a strange presence lingered in the air. Claire noticed shadows flickering at the corner of her eyes, and every so often, a soft sound echoed through the house. Footsteps, whispers. "I thought it was gone," Claire murmured, her mind racing with memories of the haunting. Thomas looked at her, his expression unreadable. "The spirits may have been freed, but this house has a way of holding on to its past." That night, Claire stayed in one of the rooms she once stayed in. The silence was almost deafening, broken only by the sound of the wind howling outside. But as she lay in bed, she heard a soft voice, one she hadn't heard in years. The following day, Claire discovered a hidden door in the attic, one she had missed all those months ago. She opened it cautiously, revealing a forgotten chamber that had been sealed off for decades. Inside, a collection of old portraits and relics hung on the walls, each item more unsettling than the last. At the center of the room was a large, ornate mirror, cracked in places but still standing. Claire felt a chill run down her spine as she stared into it. In the reflection, she saw herself, and another figure standing behind her. As Claire tried to make sense of what she had seen, she realized that the mirror was more than just a relic. It was a vessel, a gateway to another realm. It seemed that the curse of Ravenwood Manor wasn't fully broken after all. The spirits had been freed, but something darker had been left behind. Thomas, desperate to understand the growing disturbances in the house, turned to Claire for help. Together, they delved into the mansion's history, uncovering a much darker truth. The Whitmore family had been involved in occult rituals that stretched back centuries, and the mirror was a key part of those rituals. It was a conduit for the spirit that had first cursed the family. The only way to destroy the mirror, Claire and Thomas discovered, was through a binding ritual. A ritual that could only be performed by a Whitmore descendant. But the ritual was dangerous, and many had failed before. Still, they had no choice. The spirit trapped within the mirror was growing stronger, and the curse was beginning to take root once more. The ritual would require the participation of both Claire and Thomas. Claire's connection to the mansion, combined with Thomas's bloodline, was the only way to complete it. Together, they would face the final challenge of Ravenwood. On the night of the ritual, the house seemed alive with energy, the air crackling with an unnatural tension. Claire and Thomas stood before the mirror, their hands trembling as they recited the incantations from the old book. As they spoke the final words, the mirror began to tremble, and the ghostly figure appeared once again. The spirit, now more powerful than ever, howled in rage. But Claire and Thomas did not falter. With one final powerful chant, the spirit was sucked back into the mirror, which shattered into 1,000 pieces. The room grew still, the oppressive energy finally lifting. The curse of Ravenwood Manor was finally broken. The mansion, now free from the dark forces that had haunted it for centuries, was peaceful for the first time in living memory. Claire and Thomas stood on the front porch, gazing at the first rays of sunlight breaking through the clouds. Ravenwood had been reborn, no longer a place of fear, but one of potential. And for Claire, this journey had taught her not only about the strength of the human spirit, but also about the power of redemption and love. In the years that followed, Ravenwood Manor was restored to its former glory. The haunting memories of its past were slowly replaced by new stories, ones of healing, growth, and new beginnings. Claire continued her work as a writer, but Ravenwood always held a special place in her heart. Every so often she would return, not out of obligation, but because she had come to see Ravenwood as a part of her own story, a place where the past and the future intertwined, and where the legacy of the Whitmore family, both tragic and redemptive, would forever echo through the halls.